Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and as promised, today's video is all about my experience with the Microsoft Xbox One. Now, I've had this console since launch. You can see my controller, Day 1, 2013, and that's because I did have a Day 1 edition console, at least until I had to exchange it because it was dead on arrival. And I did a video on this back when the console actually launched, and I had that problem, that first one, and discussed with all of you the Advanced Replacement Program, which isn't a new program by any means, but you would think that after Microsoft's long history of console launch issues, specifically the notorious Red Ring of Death, and just overall a relatively poor reputation for hardware despite making some great software, and Xbox Live being one of the best online gaming platforms ever developed, at least most polished, outside of the PC itself. Here we have a console opportunity for them that clearly the war is wide open again between Microsoft and Sony, because here they were launching around the same time. Hardware identical. This isn't like last gen where we had very different stuff being brought out by each manufacturer because they had different visions. Now it was more a matter of they're pulling from the same manufacturers, the same parts. They're both building PCs and future-proofing them as best they can at the price points that they can deliver them. And this is actually the first generation of console I haven't been hearing about Sony or Microsoft having to take a loss to get us to adopt. And maybe that's the reason the sales numbers, quite frankly, haven't been as potent as many expected. But all of that aside, again, this is about what issues I've gone through. So the advanced replacement was delivered to me. It was just a bare console. Lo and behold, I didn't even realize my actual Day 1 controller is also defective. The plastic molding here basically feels like it's going to pop off, only on the right side. And as bizarre as that may sound, Xbox support did confirm they've had other customers with the exact same issue. This is not something I had on my replacement controller, which I'll get to through the course of this video. But essentially what transpired was they shipped me out a replacement unit, told me that they would be putting a hold on my credit card for the amount of the console, $499.99, and in the event they didn't get the return in a period of 14 days, they would bill my card $499.99. And the representative was extraordinarily apologetic. In fact, she went out of her way to disparage Microsoft, which I didn't like hearing for a number of reasons. I'm a fan of the company. How many computers, Windows 8-driven machines have I bought this year? I mean, all of you know how much I review based around Microsoft, so clearly I'm a fan. So even though I'm not happy, the last thing I wanted to hear, even though they may think that's a good strategy for customer support, was to hear them basically join the bandwagon of Microsoft sucks. But they immediately did. And she told me, it's unacceptable that they're going to put a hold on your card. And of course I agreed, because I'm not a bank, I'm a human. But lo and behold, all right, I accepted it. They're going to get me out a replacement quickly. It seemed like a good option. 3 days later, roughly, I got an email confirmation, which already was beyond when I was supposed to have received the system, that the system had shipped. But on that day, I also received a call from my credit card company informing me of a fraud alert because I had a strange bill from Microsoft. And really the strange part was the actual description. There was no good or service described. It was described as an incident. And I think that's what really triggered the credit card company to say, hey, what is going on here? So basically, I spoke to my credit card company, let them know that, yeah, it's a legit charge. It's not really legit, but it's legit in terms of that Microsoft, it's got to be for the replacement unit, and they must have screwed up, frankly. And I reached out to support, and to make a long story short, spoke to support roughly 10 separate times about this case. Even had reps that were disgusting. I mean, if I hadn't been with Microsoft so long, if I was an early adopter and first time, live user, and this was my first experience with Microsoft, I would have headed straight for the hills. I would have ran away. Shout out here to Austin. You won't hear me say that very often. This man redefines the term slug when it comes to employee over there. I believe he was in Washington. And basically he told me I should just return my console, explained to me that I don't know the difference between a charge and a hold. Meanwhile, I ended up finding out that Microsoft mysteriously billed me almost $1,500. And this all dates back to December 2nd. Here we are, almost at the end of the month, and here's the best part, folks. The advocacy team still has not gotten back to me, and we're almost at a full week already. Originally, I was promised a call from the advocacy team within 24 hours. I know that promises in this world from anybody are tough to keep, let alone Xbox Live support. But literally, it's a full week. I've called back 3 more times to say what's going on, and advocacy has just not stepped up. Now, if you're wondering what the specific problem was, because I didn't mention it, not a disk eating issue. This was an HDMI pass-through issue. In other words, I am constantly losing signal. This was on 2 consoles, my Day 1 edition as well as the replacement Microsoft sent me. Both had the same issue, even though they were from different months of manufacturing, so different lots essentially. They both would constantly drop signal, which means if you're trying to use it as a cable pass-through device like myself with Time Warner Cable, and with a modern cable box, I'm not using old hardware as most of, I think, my viewers, you guys could imagine, considering what I do here, there was no solution. No matter what I did, switching cable boxes, switching TVs, changing out the wires, changing output modes, audio codecs, not a thing. Of course, I didn't really think any of those things were the trigger. I really knew at the end of the day that this had to do with this really being, quite frankly, a Day 1 console rather than a Day 1 edition. And it is a beta experience, and there's a lot to like here. Don't for a moment think that I don't appreciate what Microsoft has done. There's no question, as a console, it is a more intriguing package than the PlayStation 4. That's why it's more expensive. It can do literally more than what the PlayStation 4 can. But a lot of users don't care about those extra features and aren't willing to pay for them, let alone go through a fraction of what I have here. So the horror story has unfortunately continued on to this date. Microsoft, all of their supervisors that got involved with this call, unable to determine any reason for that charge. In fact, I was told directly that they've never, it's basically a record. They've never actually billed an Xbox Live customer $1,500 because they don't sell anything that goes into that range, which anybody who's listening to this video, watching this video, knows that Microsoft doesn't have anything through Live that amounts to $1,498. So I would liken this to identity theft, fraud. I mean, I'm not going to directly accuse Microsoft of any of those things, but again, this is my story. This is how it's been handled. They have made concessions in the form of tokens for games I didn't want, which really doesn't go very far in the way of literally, robbing me, so to speak. And then the fact that no one has stepped up to support the matter is worse. And then again, that Austin that I gave that special shout out to before, who literally told me I should just walk away and return my console, that the best idea was to return it. When I then relayed that to representatives who thought that there's no way that any rep could have told me that, they saw he actually put it in his notes. I mean, this is how sharp this representative was, that not only did he tell me that I should walk away from the console as if it was my fault for having not only bought an Xbox One pre-ordered in June, but having been an Xbox customer for, since the inception, being a Microsoft investor for God knows how long. I mean, all of these things telling me to walk away, that I don't know the difference between a charge and a hold. And meanwhile, he even concealed the fact that Microsoft had billed me for $1,500. So still no resolution in this $1,500 mystery charge. No resolution in the console, which, by the way, magically Amazon was able to replace for me overnight in 1 day. Yeah, they couldn't give me a Day 1 console, which Microsoft can technically do, but the only part of the Day 1 console that's even significant is this, right? I mean, they give you a decal as well as an achievement. There's nothing on the actual console, so I don't care about the packaging, but even this is defective. And the worst part is, in the RMA for this, Microsoft gave me, no, they didn't give me a prepaid label, they gave me a regular label, so they expect me to pay to ship this back to get this repaired. So the show continues, folks, unfortunately for me, and I hate to be reporting about Microsoft in this light, because for those of you that follow my channel, you know how fond I am of Windows 8 products. You know, whether I'm talking about Surface Pro, Surface Pro 2, my Sony Duo 13, my XPS 18, my Alienware machine. I mean, they're all running Windows 8 now. I mean, I only have one machine left in my arsenal that's still running Windows 7, so clearly I like what Microsoft's doing. But this is just an abomination, at least in my case. And of course, this doesn't speak to everyone. I'm not saying that the way I'm being treated is the way that everyone is. But the scariest part of this story is that the last rep I spoke to told me that in all of the notes, except for one rep, Sonia, who was great, all of the other notes that he looked over, every representative stated that customer reports console is defective and is unhappy and would like a replacement. Now, I don't think I really need to explain how that is the most fruitless input or notation that any customer service representative could apply in the situation. I mean, here I am, part of the guinea pig program, telling them the HDMI pass-through doesn't work, the Dolby audio doesn't work, which I'm sure most of you already know. No Dolby sound natively. That's a patch that's supposed to come out. Still hasn't. It was supposed to be here this month. It's not here. I don't know when it will be. I'm not really, criticizing them for this, but all of these little unfinished things combined with the type of hardware problems that I've had, and by the way, the third console I got now does not have the connectivity issues of dropping out signal, so clearly some sort of quality control issue with the HDMI. I used to think it was maybe the handshake between the cable box. That's why I tried different cable boxes, different TVs, different receivers, everything you could imagine to do a simple, clear, logical process of elimination to root out the bottleneck, the problem, the issue. But lo and behold, it was the Xbox One. So whether we're talking about the downclocking of the processor performance the GPU, because they were worried it was going to melt the internals, or to the fact that just things are coming out not glued, like this controller, which I demonstrated in another video. You can see this completely moves, and it's not because I've been doing anything extreme. It's just because this was made like junk. So really not what I expect from Microsoft. And again, I hate to be, putting them on blast like this, but what else can you do as a customer or even as someone in my position that reviews equipment? This is just above and beyond what I could have ever imagined Microsoft would deliver, let alone then the treatment that they would essentially prescribe to try to fix the situation. So here we are. I'm hoping that the advocacy team gets to me, but as it stands right now, just based on what I know about the type of notes, I mean, there's no way that Microsoft is ever even going to have proper feedback about how to fix this console as long as the current environment, which seems to be the same environment they've fostered now for a decade in their live call centers, continues. Because while there are some good eggs there, the majority, unfortunately, are yes machines that really don't care about getting anything done, but rather meeting the status quo, which these days is turning customers away as per Austin. So all I can say is I really like the Xbox One, despite this rant that I just delivered. But the truth is the truth. I haven't had this problem with PlayStation 4. I haven't had to contact PlayStation. And even when I mentioned before that a simple chat, not even a chat, just going onto Amazon, logging in and saying, hey, I need a replacement of my Day 1 edition console, it was overnighted without a question. Whereas with Microsoft, a phone call, a $1,500 charge that's on my card for literally a month. I mean, if I accrue interest, I'm not even going to get into what type of damage they can do to a person if this isn't caught. So this is something where I had to share it with all of you. It's part of what the digest is all about. That as much as I love covering great products, unfortunately, sometimes I have to out great products that just have terrible quality control. And at least in my case, again, and this isn't everybody, the Xbox One is still a flop that I'm struggling with. Granted, the third one now that came from Amazon is a charm. It has been working well. Still can't get over that they expect me. Forget that they haven't done anything with the $1,500 refund. And God knows what they're going to do to try to make up for all of this, because who even wants their library of games, quite frankly? But that they wanted me to pay to return a defective controller. What's next? Are they going to pour acid on me? I just don't understand what Microsoft wants from their customers. And as far as loyalty goes, for those of you that don't know, I mean, I've been with them, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, from the start. In fact, I hedged on them that they were going to actually get into this business. So I've been with them in more ways than one. And this is just the ultimate disappointment, even though still I like so much about Xbox One, and arguably have been picking it up and playing it more in many cases than PS4 because of all of the niceties that have gone into making this really full-fledged console that unfortunately just isn't ready for prime time when it comes to software or, in my case, hardware. Hopefully things improve. That's all I can hope for, and hopefully advocacy wakes up. If you are going through similar things, feel free to post it, because Microsoft doesn't really seem to care, even in my case. So if you thought I got special treatment, be assured I do not. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.